So, can I ask you a hypothetical question?
Oh, dear, I don't like hypothetical questions.
Well, I don't think you're gonna like the real one either.
Do you have the papers?
Not yet.
This is a devastating security breach that was leaked out of the Pentagon. The most highly classified documents of the war.
The Times says 7,000 pages detailing how the White House has been lying about the Vietnam War for 30 years. The way they lied, those days have to be over.
Okay, people are concerned about having a woman in charge of the paper. That she doesn't have the resolve to make the tough choices.
Thank you, Arthur, for your frankness.
Let's do our jobs. Find those pages.
You're talking about exposing years of government secrets.
Is that legal?
What is it you think we do here for a living, kid?
Ben, I might have something.
It must be precious cargo.
It's just government secrets.
The New York Times was barred from publishing any more classified documents dealing with the Vietnam War.
If you publish, we'll be at the Supreme Court next week.
Meaning?
Well, we could all go to prison.
To make this decision, to risk her fortune and the company that's been her entire life, well, I think that's brave.
If the government wins, the Washington Post will cease to exist.
If we don't hold them accountable, who will?
We can't hold them accountable if we don't have a newspaper.
Nixon will muster the full power of the presidency, and if there's a way to destroy you, by God, he'll find it.
I'm asking your advice, Bob, not your permission.
She can't do this. The legacy of the company is at stake.
What will happen if we don't publish? We will lose. The country will lose. What are you going to do, Mrs. Graham?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Awards Watch Oscar podcast. This is podcast number 58, and I am your host, Eric Anderson. I have with me today fellow Gold Rush gang member, Matt Dinn. Hello, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. It is, what's today, November 12th?
Yeah.
And we had a long gap between podcasts. The last one we had was September 25th, and many reasons for that long gap between them, but oh my goodness, so much has happened since then. We could have done a podcast every other day. Most notably and obviously since September 25th's podcast, the avalanche of sexual harassment and assault conversations have happened with Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, and pretty much everyone in Hollywood at this point, because there's something new every single day. And I think we would be remiss without discussing that at least a little bit. But I think we are going to try and keep this in context with the Oscar race so that we aren't soapboxing too much. Do you think that's a reasonable expectation, Matt?
Yeah, we should probably keep it within the context of what this podcast is meant for, I suppose.
I think so. And I think some of the clear and obvious impact, and let me preface this to say that, impact of this on the Oscar race is not meant to sideline or dismiss actual victims of any of this horrible stuff. And I don't mean to make it, just some kind of superficial thing. But at the same time, we could do multiple podcasts solely on that topic and not be about what we're about. But specifically, some of the fallout from Weinstein, which kind of is continuing and ongoing, would be the two horses that they really kind of had in the race this season, The Current War and Wind River. And Wind River had already come out in August, before any of this had come out. And it's unfortunate in the sense that the film was well reviewed. It was a good sleeper hit, even more than Hell or High Water. And I think it would be hard pressed to see much traction come out of that movie, even though Jeremy Renner is going to be in the LA Times Actor Roundtable, which was kind of surprising, because it's inevitable that he will be having to directly address that issue. And then with The Current War, those dates for that movie get kind of moving around, and now it's completely pulled entirely from 2017, which was the smartest thing to do. There was just no way to, I think, avoid that, and it would overshadow anything film related. Matt, do you think that was the right decision for them to do?
Yeah, I mean, the reviews out of TIFF to begin with were pretty lukewarm at best, I would say, and it's just the Weinstein Company is sort of in utter chaos right now. I think they're trying their best to form some sort of semblance of I don't know, recovery or something. They're trying to keep their company afloat, but it's difficult when, you know, the face of your organization for however many decades, and really the face of awards campaigning and Oscar landscape in general, is in this sort of state of absolute disarray and controversy. It's hard to come back from that. In terms of Wind River, it was interesting because when the movie first came out, the reviews were good. They weren't great, but they were really good. And I don't think people were taking it seriously. And then as sort of the box office kept coming in, the movie was doing really well and just kept sort of week by week, just kept improving. We sort of started taking Jeremy Renner specifically seriously. And I think I had even moved him into the top 5 at one point, just based on the thinness of the category, the fact he's been nominated twice before, relatively recently. It seemed like he was going to be a serious contender for it. And then these allegations came, and it's sort of like, it's hard to, I know they're trying to do things to disassociate themselves from Weinstein. I think they're removing like the Weinstein logo from the movie for like the DVD release and stuff like that that's coming up, and future Academy screenings. But I mean, the fact is, everybody knows it was a Weinstein movie. You know, you can try your best, but you can't completely disassociate yourself from it. And while I think what they're doing is noble, I think it's going to be hard for them to completely remove that stigma from their movie. So I don't see it. I mean, I guess it's possible. Maybe Renner could show up at like SAG if someone like Tom Hanks or Daniel Day-Lewis, if their films screen late or aren't what we think they're going to be. I suppose that's possible, but I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah, it would be really shocking, I think, for that to happen. But I mean, like I said, he will be at the LA Times roundtable, so it'll be really kind of the one of the first times that we can kind of see how the response is going to be from, you know, somebody within a campaign. But yeah, I agree that I think the efforts that are being made to disassociate the company from Weinstein himself are noble, as you said. But also, as you said, the studio was in a pretty bad state for the last couple of years and getting worse, and this is certainly putting the nail in the coffin of that, which is why they're, you know, just looking to sell and kind of get rid of it completely. And part of the I guess I don't want to say that things that I regret about this, or that is regrettable about it, is that, again, aside from actual victims from Weinstein himself. He's a singular person fronting a large company with many employees, and all of them are going to suffer as a result of this. Same goes with Kevin Spacey in House of Cards, and that show being suspended while they figure out what to do. Those are hundreds and hundreds of jobs and millions of dollars in a local economy that are being held up essentially by a single person. And this isn't the kind of thing that happens in other industries when there are controversies or scandals or anything, even from somebody high up. That person either leaves or gets removed, but the company itself can often, just withstand that. And it's they don't just stop everybody from working. And that's what's happening now. And it's like a virus. It is so infectious and horrible. So, bleh.
Yeah.
That actually can take us right to Kevin Spacey, whose situation is just completely unprecedented. What is happening right now, and that's that his movie All the Money in the World, which is directed by Ridley Scott, was just finished and locked a couple of weeks ago and is set for a December 22nd release. And Scott last week decided, nope, I'm cutting Kevin Spacey out of this movie entirely, and I'm putting Christopher Plummer, who I originally wanted in the role anyway, in the movie. And still hoping to keep the December 22nd release, which is mind-blowing. We've had, lots of different situations of, recasting and changes with things. Even Scott himself had to do a lot of fancy footwork when, oh my God, now I'm forgetting his name, Oliver Reed, died before finishing his scenes in Gladiator. And they did a pretty good job for, 2000 of, putting his face on another actor, kind of just trying to wrap that up for him. It was a pretty good job for what it was.
Yeah.
What it was. This is a much different situation and certainly much pricier. But I am very intrigued to see if they can pull it off. And weirdly, I've kind of gone back and forth with how I think the reception of this is going to be, both awards wise and box office wise and critic wise and all of that, because clearly the shadow of this in Spacey is going to be over everything with it. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's going to be some interest piqued just to kind of see how he manages it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like you said, I think Ridley originally wanted Christopher Plummer for the role, and he went to the studio, and the studio wanted someone with a little more, I guess, clout or public awareness. Mm-hmm. So they sort of caked Spacey in prosthetics and made him look 25 years older than he is. But with this, it's going to be such a quick turnaround. I mean, the movie's supposed to come out in like a little over a month, I think. Mm-hmm. And I know from what I heard, Spacey only filmed for a couple weeks, I think is what I read. But the thing is, he was in some exotic locations. Even if in the trailer you saw that he was like doing a scene at the pyramids and all this other stuff, and there were so many actors involved. They're going to have to bring back Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Williams for reshoots, who are obviously, probably very busy and going to have to fit them in somehow. So I do think you're right. I think there will be an intrigue as to see if he does pull this off, how he will pull this off. In terms of Plummer's, he's an actor who comes from theater. So if Ridley constantly has to go, okay, we got to do this in one take, I think he'll be okay. He's a pro. But like you said, I think there will be an intrigue as to how this sort of pans out. I mean, the movie didn't have, I would say, a lot of awareness, but when that Plummer announcement got announced, people were talking about it like they hadn't been talking about it before. So they're going to sink millions into fixing this, but I think it's the right decision. morally, and I think for the sake of the film, I think it's the right decision. I think there's just too much negativity surrounding Spacey, justifiably so. And I think fixing this will do a lot for the perception of the film in terms of the morality of it, the morality of the filmmakers, maybe even the morality of the industry as a whole, that there's a sign of optimism that, you know, they're not okay with this, and that someone like Ridley Scott, who's been around forever, is not okay with this, and that he saw fit to make this decision and make this change amidst the fact that his movie is supposed to be released in a month from now, and the actor whose appearance they played up for the entirety of the trailer as some like big superhero-like reveal almost, which is exactly what it was. I mean, the whole trailer was built around Spacey's reveal and their prosthetics, and you're like, oh my god, it's Kevin Spacey as J. Paul Getty, and it's like this huge like reveal, and they played that up in the trailer, and now they have to tear all of that down, tear that perception down, and put a new actor in his place. And I don't know, I'm very interested to see how it will unfold, both in terms of the awards, critics, and even the audience reception of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that they won't be able to have any type of finished product for like the Globes or even probably SAG.
Yeah,
I don't think that's in the cards. It's going to have to be after that. But yeah, like you mentioned, there are some locations and things involved in this that are going to be really tricky. But I think Spacey worked only like 10 days on this, and these reshoots are happening within the next 2 weeks. So it's going to be a hat trick of epic proportions either way.
Yeah.
So I am intrigued by that. I will say I was a little bit surprised by the overall reaction to this decision, because only in the sense that there was this sort of like elevation of Ridley Scott into like almost hero status for this. And it's, I guess I'm just sort of a little cautious to chime in with agreement with that, and that's only because it's a $40 million movie. Yes, they had pinned virtually all of the Oscar hopes and the campaigns solely on Spacey. So there's more than just an altruistic thing going on here. This is potentially, you know, to save money as well as saving face. So I mean, I'm glad that it's happening, but it's you know, like I said, I'm just a little cautious about my praise of it.
Yeah, I mean, he made, you know, this is the decision that should be made. It's not something that, you know, he's making it some like radical. It is a radical decision in a sense, but it's also the it seems like the obvious decision to make, you know. I guess like you said before, the only real shocking thing about all this is that they're still aiming for the release date next month. And I think the main reason for that is the Danny Boyle miniseries that's coming out in January on FX. I think they're still just trying to get ahead of that and beat that whatever way possible. So I do think there is a monetary factor to this, involved both in terms of recasting Spacey and also trying to beat the Boyle miniseries. So yeah, I don't really feel like we should be putting Scott up on a pedestal necessarily. I mean, he's made some let's say questionable decisions in the past and said some questionable things. The Exodus thing comes to mind. But, you know, I think he's making the right decision, and I think for that, you know, we should praise him within the context of that.
Yes.
But I think we should also not forget that, you know, this is a decision made partially out of a monetary factor, and the Spacey allegations are serious. They go well beyond whatever this movie offers, whatever quality this movie has. The allegations should not be in any way mitigated by what's going on with this film. But I mean, there is, we'll just have to see what happens. Like you said, I in terms of awards, I don't know, because I don't know, when this movie exactly is going to be finished. I would assume very, very close to that December 22nd release date. And I mean, as sad as the Spacey allegations are, what a strange situation it would be if Christopher Plummer somehow found himself in the supporting actor discussion. I'm not going to say that's a possibility, because I don't know how good this movie is going to be. I don't know if anybody's going to see this movie like even a day or two before the December 22nd release date. We don't even know if it's going to be finished by December 22nd. But it does sort of create this cloud of intrigue over it, and this cloud of almost mystery, because are they even going to release a new trailer where they show Christopher Plummer in the movie? I don't know even how they have time to edit that. I have so many questions, and like you said, I think Chris Tapley wrote an article about it. The entire awards campaign of this movie was going to be entirely centered on Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, that was the whole focus.
That was the play. That was the play for this movie. It was a supporting actor play. It was a play to get him in the awards discussion. That was the main nomination that seemed like they were going for. And now that's completely destroyed, obviously. But I don't know. Does Christopher Plummer replace him in that? I don't know, because I don't know who's going to see this movie in time for it to generate any type of discussion in that context. So I don't know. It's a very confusing situation. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and even before all of this, we kind of, as a group, as the Goldbush gang, we're looking at this as, just a main push for Spacey, with some maybes in, production design, costume design, and stuff like that, because of the different periods that we're talking about. But I can see a case for Plummer, maybe, but it would be an absolute late-breaking one, because he won't hit anywhere. He'll only really kind of be able to hit the Oscars, because they're the only people that are going to have a chance to see it
right
at that time. So, oh my God, talk about making for an incredibly hard prediction. Goodness gracious. But I think we can take it out of makeup now, pretty officially.
Yeah, that's true.
Because, I mean, one of the things about it is that, the amount of makeup that Spacey had on kind of feeds into one of, the Academy's favorite things, and that's old man makeup. But I thought his makeup looked really terrible and mushy. It made him look like Mitch McConnell, or like Mason Verger from Hannibal. It didn't look good. It looked terrible. Yeah. So that's actually going to save a lot of time, because they won't have to be putting Plummer in any makeup. So it's I think they can do it. And again, it will be quite something. I think it's going to put the film in one of those weird places where many decades maybe down the line, there will be this version will surface somehow or somewhere. And it's kind of funny that it's Ridley Scott, considering Blade Runner sort of went through so many different versions, obviously not for the same reasons. But, I mean, we have multiple versions of that movie now, but it took quite a long time for that to happen. And I do think that we might see that at some point. And there will be a morbid curiosity from a cinephile standpoint to kind of compare them.
Yeah.
But, so, I think that's probably about all that we really need to spend on that. But, it does push us perfectly into the general awards conversation that we are here to have. And since we kind of focused in on supporting actor there, it might be a good idea to kind of look at that category, because my goodness, it is juicy. It is full of possibilities, not only with frontrunners, but just how the nominations in this category are going to pan out. we have so many movies with potential double contenders here, and every damn year it's like we have to look at this category and go, yes, there hasn't been 2 supporting actor nominees since Bugsy 1991, and it's going to happen this year, and we sort of get close and then it doesn't. But I mean, again, I think this might be one of the best opportunities for at least one movie to pull that off. But it's crazy that we have so many.
Yeah, I mean, there's you have Call Me by Your Name. Obviously, I think is probably the most plausible one with Stuhlbarg and Hammer. And then you have The Shape of Water with Shannon and Jenkins, and even long shots like, although unlikely, Mitchell and Hedlund for Mudbound, and even Woody Harrelson has been getting a lot of really strong reviews for 3 Billboards. Although Sam Rockwell seems like the main push, it's another possibility. So you have up to 4 films with 2 fairly significant contenders in a category where this has been unprecedented for 25, 26 years.
Yeah.
So I think if it were to happen in any year, it seems like this would be it. I mean, to me, it would seem that way.
One of the really interesting things about the Bugsy situation is that Harvey Keitel was the clear going to be nominated guy. He's the only one that got any traction critically before the Golden Globes, and then it was at the Globes that both Kingsley and Keitel got in, and then Oscars after that. Yeah. And that was just one of those kind of telling things where you've got somebody that's essentially the one getting all of the attention, and then they actually coattail another supporting actor.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of potentially what's happening here. If it were to happen for Harrelson, that would be, to me, kind of, it would mirror a lot of the Keitel Kingsley, I think.
Yeah.
But I agree that I think Call Me by Your Name is a much closer likelihood. And if I'm looking at your predictions right now, you have Stuhlbarg in 3rd and Hammer in 6th.
Yeah, I don't have it happening, but I'm close to putting Hammer in. It seems like he's been at a lot of the screenings ever since Sundance. He's been campaigning a lot. I think he even did the audiobook for the novel that was just released recently. So there's a lot of things he's doing to help to promote the movie. And I would say of the 3 main actors of the cast, he's the closest thing to a recognizable name / face for general audiences. Just on the basis of being like in The Social Network and whatnot. Chalamet is sort of a newcomer, although he's been in Homeland, and Stuhlbarg, while sort of a respected character actor, is sort of a name to face recognition only for, I would say, cinephiles more so than general audiences. But I'm close to putting him in because I think that film is going to be a lot stronger than maybe I thought way back in January. Because after I saw it at TIFF, I found the film to be a lot more accessible than I expected. So I think it's going to play really well to the Academy in a wide fashion. I don't think it's going to be so rigid in terms of its audience and appeal within the Academy as I originally expected.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I mean, since we had our first predictions back in March or whatever, I mean, I had Stuhlbarg at number 1, and he was my number 1 until just a few weeks ago. And that was, just Rockwell and Dafoe just really kept coming and coming and coming. But you have a situation with Call Me by Your Name where Stuhlbarg is a fantastic supporting role and contender, and Hammer is almost a co-lead. And normally, if it wasn't for Stuhlbarg, Hammer would make perfect sense as a nominee. But he's kind of battling a co-star, even though he has significantly more screen time. I had Hammer at number 6 until a couple of days ago, and I swapped him out with Mark Rylance, and I could kind of look at that and keep doing it like over and over.
I have a lot of confidence in Mark Rylance happening. I don't think he deserves to be nominated, because I'm saying this as someone who loves Dunkirk and loves Mark Rylance. I don't think there's a lot for him to do in that movie specifically, but my biggest argument in favor of him for the past few months has been that he's the closest thing to that film as an emotional anchor. Mm-hmm. His character is sort of the closest thing I would say to an audience surrogate. So that's my biggest argument for him. He's probably the most although he hasn't worked in film for as long as he has worked in theater, he's very respected and revered. I mean, he beat Sylvester Stallone by basically doing nothing in terms of campaigning. Mm-hmm. And Stallone had a huge sort of comeback narrative, although there was questions about how respected, revered he was within the Academy. He still had that narrative, and Rylance didn't have any sort of narrative like that. He had a very subtle, quiet role, as opposed to a little more outward for Stallone, and still beat him. And like Bridge of Spies, he's very quiet and reserved in Dunkirk, but he's very composed. It's an everyman in an extraordinary situation, and sort of rising to the occasion and being sort of a quiet hero. Mm-hmm. Not too dissimilar from his role in Bridge of Spies in many ways. So I think I feel confident in him. I think it's one of those nominations that people are going to dismiss because, frankly, out of personal bias, because they don't think he's deserving. It sort of reminds me of Alan Arkin in Argo, where I think it's going to be one of those nominees where he's in a top contender and he's got sort of the standout role based on the pure nature of it, and people are going to dismiss him, and then he's just going to start showing up everywhere, and it's just going to happen, and people are just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's the Alan Arkin thing is pretty good, and I sort of look at him as this weird combination of Arkin and Christoph Waltz.
Yeah,
who's also somebody that when he first came on the scene, it was like nobody knew who he was, but then he just kind of dominated, and that happened for Rylance too, with Bridge of Spies. And Rylance checks off a lot of boxes for this. He's a previous winner. He's in potentially a top 5 or top 3 contender. There's the Warner Brothers supporting actor stat. He has a lot of things that are going to benefit him. And, his movie is going to be seen more and sooner. So it's, yeah, I mean, he's in our top 5 as a whole. He's tied with Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of exactly where that position needs to be, is that. Yeah. But let's kind of look at who is our clear top 2 at least. And that's Sam Rockwell and Willem Dafoe, because I feel like they both have really strong narratives. Dafoe, as a previous 2-time nominee and sort of the veteran here, has that's a fantastic narrative, and that could carry him if the Florida Project even isn't a major contender. But then you have Sam Rockwell, a never nominated, well-liked actor. He's working the circuit more than Dafoe is. 3 Billboards is arguably a much bigger contender. Mm-hmm. And of all of the major players here, he's the only one with the screen time and the arc of, I mean, he has a fully fledged, fully formed arc as a character. And I don't want to spoil and go into the hows and whys, because the movie just came out in like 4 theaters, and it's crucial to the movie. He's not just kind of like a person in the movie. His character is crucial to the success of the film. And if the movie is top 3, which, spoiler, it is, that boosts his chances enormously. And he is actually our collective number 1 right now by just a single point, which is totally my fault. I'm holding him back just a little bit, but so is Greg. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not completely dismissing Michael Stuhlbarg potential. I mean, because I think he's going to factor in hugely with the critic awards. But like you said, Rockwell, like, we don't want to go into spoilers too much, but there's a lot going on there, and there's a complaint there that does at first. I'll just sort of leave it at that without venturing too far into spoilers. But Willem Dafoe has 2 nominations. So I think Sam Rockwell is the type of actor who's been around long enough, worked with enough people, that I don't think him never having been nominated before, whether he can win or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to hold him back. It's not like he's a complete newbie or anything like that. People know who he is. It's going to be interesting. I think this race, more than other, we could see with split precursors.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, Armie Hammer. I mean, I've been throwing around the possibility that Armie Hammer could win the Golden Globe for supporting actor. I don't see why that's impossible, because the sort of young hunk-ish guy in sort of a has been a popular thing for the HFPA to go with someone. Well, Aaron Taylor Johnson last year is someone I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been examples of that where there's been actors, youngish actors, who are sort of rising stars that didn't win the Oscar and really didn't have a chance of winning the Oscar, but won the award anyways and sort of shook up the race and splintered it. I can even go way back to 12 Monkeys. I don't think anybody really thought that he was going to... I obviously didn't follow the race back then, but I don't think anybody thought that was going to be an Oscar-winning performance. And then he won the Golden Globe and sort of shook up the race a little bit. You had Ed Harris in there for Apollo 13, who won the SAG, and then Kevin Spacey. So there's been examples of actors attractive on the rise, winning that award before, sort of out of nowhere. So
yeah, and I think those are all really, really good arguments. Although, I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson's win was quite an exception to the rule, because it had been like 30 years before somebody had won that and then wasn't Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
And ironically, the exact same thing happened where his co-star was nominated instead. So the similarities between the two things were just uncanny. I think I'm still so high on Stuhlbarg, and I hate that I have him at number 2 right now, and I might just switch him back to number 1. He's going to benefit immensely by having potentially 3 Best Picture nominees this year. And that hasn't happened since John C. Reilly in 2002. He's got The Shape of Water and The Post as well, and that is only going to help him, because it's, even if he gets some critics awards that have the multiple citations, this is the movie that he's gonna get the majority of. Any singular ones will come from this, and that's enormously helpful to him.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest reason he's more likely than Armie Hammer for a nomination is simply because he has probably the most emotional, impactful scene of the movie, arguably the most emotional, impactful scene of the entire year. So
I can barely talk about that movie and that scene without not having an emotional breakdown. It's
right.
It's
and there's so much going on in that scene in terms of especially what he lends to it. There's a pathos going on there. There's a personal regret almost, without going into spoilers, but he invests so much in that scene that goes beyond what's even on the page. And what's on the page is already terrific, so he sort of adds another layer to that, and that's why he's if he wins, it's because of that scene. And it's rare that an actor wins because of one scene, but it has happened before. And it's plausible that could power him right through. Because as good as Rockwell and Dafoe are, I'm not sure they have one singular scene that's as powerful as Stuhlbarg's scene. They're in more of the movie than Stuhlbarg, their respective movies than Stuhlbarg. That's probably their biggest, I guess, thing they have over him.
Yeah.
But it's entirely possible if he sweeps the Critics Awards, which I would not be entirely surprised if he did. Although I don't know if I 100% buy that, because I think Dafoe and Rockwell will win their share of critic prizes. But like I said, out of the 4 acting races, this is the one I see being the most splintered. I don't see a sweep happening for anybody. Now that could change. We've seen that before, where we've assumed a race would be splintered, and then one person just started sweeping everything. But I think this one feels like it's going to be splintered. So I think it's sometimes supporting actor is the most boring of the races. This time it might be the most exciting, which is nice. It's a nice change of pace.
It is. It definitely is. And I want to plug my interview with Michael Stuhlbarg that I posted a few days ago, and we talk about very specifically that scene, and a little bit of background on it. And my goodness, he's so quiet and thoughtful and introspective. It was, yeah, I loved chatting with him. He's a fascinating person. So if you have a chance, listen to that interview. It's not very spoiler heavy since the movie hasn't come out yet, but check it out anyway. Yeah, I agree with you. This category does have the chance to be super splintered. I think Rockwell, Dafoe, and Stuhlbarg will absolutely split these throughout the whole season. So I'm gonna be really excited to see how it pans out. I think we might see a little less of that though in supporting actress. Right now, our top 5 is Allison Janney, Laurie Metcalf, Holly Hunter, Octavia Spencer, and Mary J. Blige. But I feel like Janney is going to utterly dominate Critics Awards. I think it won't even be close.
Yeah, I agree and disagree. I think that I've seen the movie, and she's such a dominant presence in so much of the movie and such an outward depiction. But I don't know, Laurie Metcalf, there's a lot of love for her right now. Lady Bird is such a phenomenon in terms of critics and box office. I'm not ready to entirely dismiss her, at least in terms of critic awards. I agree that when it gets to industry awards, I think Janney will probably sweep. But I could see Metcalf, in a couple, maybe like LA or New York, pulling off a win and maybe adding a little bit of intrigue to this category. But I think she's probably the only one with a chance to maybe spoil Janney's party. But Janney is she's such a dominant force in that movie, and she has such a juicy role to play. And sort of like Sam Rockwell, she's never been nominated before, but people know who she is. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's going to be a problem with her winning. I don't think it's going to be like, we're not ready to give her an award. Well, she's been around forever, so it doesn't really matter. And like Laurie Metcalf's never been nominated before either. So it's not like her main competition, in my opinion, has that going for her ahead of her. So, yeah, I think Janney will probably win. But I'm not quite as sold as everyone else. I think Laurie Metcalf, while a quiet and reserved performance, admittedly, as opposed to Janney's more outward and flamboyant performance, I think Metcalf is going to find a lot of supporters, a lot of favor, and I think she can make this more interesting than people think.
I hope so. I think Metcalf is wonderful. I think Janney is also fantastic. It's kind of great that they're both. I mean, it's such a mom-heavy season. It is. I mean, if there's a theme for this year, it's mother-daughter, in just the most surprising and kind of super exciting way. I would love to see them both kind of be able to volley wins back and forth. Yeah. Because I think they're both so deserving. I think it's very difficult to do the much more like passive aggressive work that Metcalf does in Lady Bird.
Yeah.
Which makes her good mom and bad mom in almost equal degrees.
Yeah.
Versus Janney, who is just like the worst Disney villain imaginable.
Yeah.
And that gets a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And and she's already such a heavily awarded actress within the television industry. So
I'll be transparent here and say that I have a personal preference to Metcalf over Janney in terms of who I personally am rooting for and who I personally find more deserving. But I mean, Janney she's a wonderful actress, obviously in general. This is sort of like the showcase in terms of, at least in film work, that she sort of has deserved for a long time, and it should be a great winner. But I just find what Metcalf does in that movie is so tricky, so nuanced, and so deeply felt. It's the type of performance that rarely wins Oscars, but you love when they do, because it shows that the industry can appreciate how much is being done, even when it looks like almost nothing is being done, because it looks so effortless what she's doing, yet she's investing so much into it, and there's so much going on in everything she does in that movie. Specifically, a scene near the end, which I won't spoil, but there's a three-dimensionality that doesn't appear obvious on the surface, but she has this sort of beautiful way of expressing so much by doing so little. And I think she's had that for a long time, but she hasn't really been able to showcase it until now, at least in film. So I don't know. And like you said, this category is interesting in terms of the mothers, because I look at our top three. It's Allison Janney, Laurie Metcalf, and Holly Hunter, who all play sort of, I guess, varied versions of very impassioned mothers, I guess is what you would call them.
Yes.
I mean, Janney and Hunter's characters are a lot more outward than Metcalf's character, I would say. Metcalf is a lot more reserved. Although she's like you said, she's sort of varying back and forth between doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing. She's not really sure within various moments, and I think there's a real spontaneity there that's sort of emblematic of what makes Lady Bird special. It feels very very spontaneous. It feels like very much a slice of life, and I think that's what makes the movie special. And I think what Metcalf does is so perfectly sums up why that movie works and why I think it's found such a place. And I think what you can't underestimate in regards to Metcalf's chances is how many people walk out of that movie and want to call their mothers, because it's such a love letter between mother-daughter, or even mother-son. I watched the movie and my first instinct was to call my mom. So, and I think a big reason of that is a lot of it has to do with Gerwig and how phenomenal the script is, and how beautiful it is, and how much it seems like it comes from a very personal place. But a lot of that is what Metcalf does in the movie to make that mother character so relatable and so organic and so of a place of something that deep inside of you relates to something you've experienced, even if it's not exactly that. So I don't know. I hope Metcalf can shake this thing up a bit, because while I would have no problem seeing Janney win, because I think she's great in I, Tonya. I don't think she's bad at all in it. It's just I think what Metcalf does is the sort of thing that rarely wins Oscars, and when they do win Oscars, I get so excited because it never happens, So We'll see, though. It's an intriguing race for sure, and I don't know.
Well,
I don't know, basically. Yeah.
I think this is the thing, a great example of why these awards are so subjective, and it is apples to oranges, because you can't put Metcalf and Janney side by side and really see similarities, because Metcalf's is a much more grounded and realistic role and performance in a much more grounded and realistic movie, and Janney is an over-the-top, playing a real-life over-the-top person in a movie whose tone and style is also highly hyper-realized. So I mean, it's so arbitrary and so subjective as to, you know, thinking one is better than the other and the reasons that you do. You're right, though. I've seen so many responses online that Lady Bird is making people want to talk to their mothers. I think the timing of it is really, really good, because it's going to hit big right at Thanksgiving, and it's going to kind of, I think, spur conversations. I think it's in a great position to do that. It just had its second weekend at the box office, which was huge. It broke into the top 10 in just 37 theaters, after having the biggest per screen for a live action this year, last week, and the biggest for a female writer-director ever. So there's a lot of narrative behind this movie. There's a lot to praise, and there's a lot of reasons to. And it's really kind of become, and I think it will become, a much bigger thing than I, Tonya can probably get to, just because of the difference in style. I think one interesting thing that has happened in this category as well is A24's decision to take Brooklyn Prince up to lead. Because before, I mean, you know, we kind of had her in supporting just as a kind of a default and kid performance thing, and it's hard to get a kid in lead. Quinvene Wallace is a really huge exception for that. So I absolutely respect A24 for not just succumbing to category fraud in order to get a nomination. I think it's going to be very difficult, but yeah, I mean, I know that's more actress related, but it's that has also happened since the last podcast, because Brooklyn Prince was kind of a big deal, and that girl is everywhere. Yeah.
No, you're right. This category, I think, has opened up a little bit in the past couple of weeks. You have, you know, Brooklyn Prince moving to lead, and then Melissa Leo we had high up on our sort of board for a while there, but the box office for her film is quite bad, and it's going to be, the path appears far more difficult for her than it did a few months ago. And then you have Hong Chow, who, when the Venice reviews first came out, and the early buzz was she was fantastic in it, and since then the reviews for her film have tapered off quite a bit, and her film represents a significant commercial challenge, I would argue. And there's been some criticisms directed at her character, which obviously is not, you know, directed at her, more so the writing, but that could prove a problem for her, fairly or unfairly.
Although she is showing up at a lot of places too.
And I think she's showing up because they know that she is the film's best chance at a nomination.
Yeah.
And probably its only chance realistically.
Yeah.
So this category, you know, we have Mary J. Blige in our top 5 now, who we did not have in our top 5 at any point, I would say, before the last couple of weeks.
Nope.
And I think that's a direct result of how this category has opened up and changed a bit. And so Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more possibilities now with Prince in lead, with some of the other contenders maybe tapering off a bit. And I guess, do you maybe want to talk about your interesting prediction for a second? I want to know. I'm very curious because I see the argument. I see the argument for sure. I just want you to expand on it.
I'm guessing you're talking about Tiffany Haddish.
Yes.
Okay. So, one, I mean, I think it would be a very deserved and inspired nomination. And there is a groundswell for it right now. I wanted to get in there and be ahead of it rather than kind of come in after it that ball starts rolling. That said, she has an incredibly difficult path to get to a nomination. This is a category that at least has more diversity in it than others. We were just talking about supporting actor, and if you did not notice, all the contenders that we mentioned, they are all white. Mm-hmm. That also looks very likely in the top categories. So this is the one acting category that is going to probably / likely save it from being 100% Oscar so white, but that's still going to be an issue, and it's still going to be a real issue this year. Mm-hmm. I'm worried for Haddish in that Universal is really terrible at this. They only just got category listings up on their FYC website, whereas they had multiple other ones for other movies, even fucking 50 Shades Darker. But they put all of the women in supporting in this, which is also really stupid. Since Regina Hall is the lead and everybody else is kind of supporting. But it's really strange to me because I mentioned 50 Shades Darker because when you go to that page's FYC page, it's only up there for song, and that's because they're not dumb enough to try and pretend that they can position it for Best Picture. They're putting it up for the nomination that they think is the most likely and most realistic, and that's exactly what they should be doing for Haddish. She should be the only push. And she just got Saturday Night Live last night, which was fantastic, and it's huge because that was her movie came out in the summer when SNL doesn't air. So getting her in there is and visible is really important. She'll still need to be pushed and added to like supporting actress roundtables and stuff like that. She needs to get invited to things, and she needs to go to things, and she needs to wear that same dress every single time. So yes, I have her at number 5 because of the groundswell support to get her that nomination. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times peripheral contenders can be given the proper push and into the spotlight by critics, which then makes actual voters have to go, okay, maybe I need to consider this where I did not before. So I have her in good faith and in hope. And there we go. We'll see how the next month pans out for her. I do really, really hope that we can see her in. I wish she had been like in the Variety's Actors on Actors. That would have been fantastic. Mm-hmm. But again, this is up to Universal more than anybody else. They have to push for her. So
yeah,
that's all. That's why.
No, I get the argument. I mean, it was a significant box office hit. She's a clear standout in the movie, and she's been doing other stuff like Saturday Night Live and whatnot. So, I mean, it's not unreasonable. And like you said, supporting actress appears like the only category that could solve a potential Oscar so white issue again. I think Spencer and Mary J. Blige are the only actors in any category we currently have in our top 5 that are persons of color. So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly see the argument, and the category, like I said, has opened up in the past few weeks where fun sort of possibilities like that should be pondered and bandied about. So, do you think they're going to push her lead at the Golden Globes?
Oh my God. I mean, considering, that they separate leads but not supporting, it would be a good idea. She's not the lead, but I am not holding my breath for a Globe nomination for this.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing too that I wanted to mention is that a lot of people are trying to make comparisons to Melissa McCarthy and Bridesmaids, and I think it's a mistake, because the two movies are not going to see parallels in other areas. Girls Trip is not getting a PGA nomination. It's not getting a Writers Guild nomination,
right,
or Oscar nomination. Tiffany Haddish, for most people, is going to be a new face, whereas Melissa McCarthy was an Emmy winner at the time.
Right.
So I think it's an unfair comparison and an unfair expectation. I think Haddish needs to be regarded as her own thing, and it's the only fair way to do it.
Yeah.
So, and I'd really love to see it. I don't do a lot of like hope dictating stuff. That's not why I do this. I want to do this because I want to be able to do it as accurately as possible and understand where trends and where things are going, not just because I want it to happen.
Yeah.
So, but all right, let's I'm looking at the rest of this category. I don't know. It's I think we should just move on. We're already at an hour, for Christ's sake, and we've only done 2 supporting categories, for goodness gracious. Let's move over to actress. I don't think I want to do too much like screenplay or tech stuff today. It's just going to take too much time, and this will be a 4-hour podcast, but we have to release it in volumes. Actress is going to be a really, really great category too, and it's a perfect time to talk about it because we just had the release of the trailer for The Post come out with Meryl Streep with top billing.
Which is significant because Tom Hanks is Tom Hanks.
It's a huge deal. Streep hasn't even been in a Best Picture contender since 2002. It's a big deal, and it's a very handsome looking movie. She looks superb, and there is an intersectionality with Streep's character of Katharine Graham that hits real life character, the attack on news organizations that's happening right now, as well as a singular woman in a very male-dominated position, and being strong as hell.
Yep.
So I think there is and then I have Streep at number 1. I will never pretty much not have Streep at number 1 almost in a year, because I think it's just dangerous not to. Every single argument in favor of Frances McDormand makes 100% sense, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But there is there is something to me about that. All of the boxes that Streep checks, that make a ton of sense. I mean, the movie would have to be a disaster of epic proportions, both critically and financially, for Streep to fail in any way. So I'm very, very deep on that, and I really liked the trailer. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to remember, I mean, Frances McDormand is probably not going to campaign very much. I mean, she's just not. That's just her personality, right? I mean, I think, if anything, Sam Rockwell has had to sort of take over for Frances's lack of campaigning, just because she's not comfortable with that sort of thing. That's not who she is. And she'll do what she will to support a film she obviously believes in, but she's not going to go the extra mile. She's not gonna shake everyone's hand. She's not going to, rub shoulders with everybody. And
no, she'll just flip them off.
Yeah. And that includes, obviously, the HFPA, who have never given her a win.
I know.
Somehow she didn't win for either Fargo or Olive Kitteridge, when she should have probably won easily either time. I'm not just speaking in terms of deserving. I'm speaking in terms of where she was in those respective races.
Absolutely.
It didn't appear to make much sense. But I'm guessing that the lack of hand rubbing is a significant factor there, since the HFPA has always been known to be liable to that sort of stuff, receptive. And so, and I don't think Meryl Streep is so much that she's, a campaign, whore or anything like that. It's more so that she's so respected, she's so revered, and she's so loved by the HFPA, who have given her countless wins, that she feels like a far more likely winner than McDormand there, at least on the surface. And she's just, she's got a role where, like you said, she's assertive. She's an assertive female in a male dominated field, and that sort of has some real life current zeitgeist appeal to it. And I guess the only reason I don't have her number one is the simple fact that no one's seen the movie.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't oblige to the whole idea that I can't predict someone if nobody's seen the movie, but I do have a difficult time putting someone number one if no one's seen the movie. That to me is a lot to assume. Although in this particular situation, I don't think it's a fair assumption based on the significant pedigree here. Spielberg, Josh Singer, I think, is one of the writers, and he wrote Spotlight, I believe.
Yeah, he came in to do some additions to Liz Hannah's script.
Right. Yeah, and obviously he's a recent Oscar winner as well. And Tom Hanks, you have basically a murderer's row of character actors here in supporting roles, very similar to Three Billboards in that regard, where you look down the supporting actress list and you're like, wow. And so there's a lot of pedigree here. I guess, like I said, my only question is, no one's seen the movie, and I have no doubt the movie will be good. I guess my only question is how good. And that's the only thing, is that the other contenders in this category, whether it be Margot Robbie, Saoirse Ronan, Sally Hawkins, Judi Dench, Jessica Chastain, go down the list. They've all been seen. People have seen the movie. They know what it is. They know what those movies are. They know how they're being received, and the post remains a question mark. But I mean, she's Streep, so you have to assume that she's going to be great, because she rarely isn't, and you have to assume the movie is going to be good, because Steven Spielberg rarely makes a bad movie. So you can put those factors into consideration, and I think she has to be seriously considered, and how far she'll go will be a result of how good the movie is and how significant her character is in it. We know she's significant enough that she gets top billing over Tom Hanks. That's a very good sign that her character is the driving force of the movie, because females obviously have been reduced to second billing behind males in sort of co-lead films for a long time. So my sense is that if she's getting top billing, it's because she's the central focus of the film.
Yes,
so,
and Tom Hanks is playing Ben Bradley, who was a supporting character and win for Jason Robards and All the President's Men. Yeah. I cannot disagree at all with anything that you're saying about Streep and the not seen factor. There probably is not a better example of quote good on paper than The Post this year. Yeah. And it was the thing that most of us were pulling our hair out over, because everything else had been seen and we were just waiting and waiting on anything from this movie. So I don't disagree with that at all. And on to Frances McDormand, I think her character and role too is also representative of the difficulty that women have on a daily basis with male-dominated jobs and situations. And in this year, that to me feels like whenever the Academy or anything tries to push forward a year of the woman and it fails epically, this is going to be one of the closest examples of the reality of that. If you look at our top 5, all of these women are coming from potentially Best Picture candidates. Obviously, I, Tonya is not the most solid of that, but
it's plausible.
But it's plausible, and it's a banner year in regards to that. It also makes me a little cautious, because whenever we look at like a Best Picture lineup that are female led, it's like I mean, this happened in 2015 even. But I think there is a strong argument for McDormand. I think she will do extremely well with Critics Awards. We've discussed at length every couple of years the difficulty that actresses have getting a second lead win unless their movie is a Best Picture nominee or winner, or at least it actually kind of really needs that, unless you're Meryl Streep. So McDormand will be able to check that box, because 3 Billboards is a very real contender. So I can see that. What I do want to do is go backwards a little bit to the Golden Globe conversation that you were having with McDormand, because something really interesting happened, and that is that Fox Searchlight submitted McDormand for drama and the film, obviously, rather than comedy.
Yeah.
Which that raised a lot of flags for me, both positive and negative. That puts her in direct competition with Sally Hawkins and The Shape of Water, just down the line. Which was a bit of a surprise. But I think Fox Searchlight saw the tea leaves and did not want at least a repeat of McDormand losing to somebody that maybe was not better, I guess we'll say is the best thing. Because I think kind of right now a lot of people are, and most people, are looking to either Margot Robbie or Saoirse Ronan being able to win the Globe. It's the most realistic. And I think McDormand might have had a difficult time, considering the Globe's sort of, hesitance.
They love the young ingenues, right? And Ronan and Robbie sort of fit that to a T.
Yes.
And I think the move was made for two reasons. I think they feared how it would essentially look if McDormand lost the comedy Golden Globe, which is seen as, I guess, lesser in some circles in the Drama Globe. I think we saw that as potentially significantly detrimental to her Oscar win chances. And also because I think they wanted to give Three Billboards a sense of importance and a sense of that it has a zeitgeist appeal to what's going on now, cultural significance to what's going on right now, which I would argue it does. And I think placing it in drama enhances the significance of that as opposed to placing it in comedy, which I guess would maybe give off the impression that the film is dealing with its subject matter in a completely comedic light, which it does in instances, but it balances the two, right? It's a tonal balance.
Yeah.
It's a tonal sort of mixture of drama and comedy. And but I guess it is surprising because now they have Fox Searchlight has their two big horses in Three Billboards in the Shape of Water going head to head in the same category, which most studios, when they have two significant contenders and one of them can go in one category, one can go in the other, usually they separate them to maximize their potential. So it is intriguing in that sense. It's a perplexing move, and like you said, I can see it going either way. It could work out spectacularly, or it could really blow up in their face. And so yeah, I don't know, because like you say, she avoids facing Ronan and Robbie and maybe losing a Comedy Globe, and maybe that looks I guess bad, but I mean, she lost the Comedy Globe for Fargo, and she won the Oscar, right? So, so that didn't affect her too much. So, it's an interesting move, and yeah, she avoids Ronan and Robbie now, but now she just has to face Meryl Streep. And so, like,
exactly, who wants that?
So, like, she's like it's not like her competition has gotten any less fierce. It's just changed. So now her two biggest competitors in drama are Meryl Streep and Sally Hawkins, who is in a film from the same distributor as her. So I'm not sure the move makes entire sense, but it's an intriguing move. And I do think it does show confidence that they feel like Three Billboards has enough, I guess, current climate appeal that they can push it in drama and push the important angle of the movie, which I think is what they're going to have to do if they want it to be taken seriously as a winner, because films that balance comedy and drama often have a difficult time ultimately going all the way and winning Best Picture. Recent examples, I'm thinking of like The Big Short, which won the PGA, but was a film that balanced comedy and drama, and maybe some didn't take it seriously enough, and I think there was a little bit divisive as well, as at least as compared to Spotlight, which dealt with a similar serious topic but in a more straightforward, dramatic way. And so I think they really need to play up the importance angle of the film, the seriousness of it, and how it deals with people. The people in that movie, they all feel not defined by merely being good or bad, but just being human and making mistakes and being flawed, yet all trying to ultimately do the right thing, whatever that means. And I think if they play that angle of the movie, that's where they can ultimately push it to winner stratosphere as opposed to nominee. So whether the move pays off or not, I don't know, but I'll give Fox Searchlight credit. That's a ballsy move. I mean, they could have easily just put it in comedy and said, hey, we're going to win the Comedy Globe easily, we're going to win the Comedy Awards easily, and then not worry about drama. But now they've made a move where they're going, I guess it signifies that the Three Billboards is the film they're going to push over The Shape of Water. I don't see why you would place it in drama unless that was the movie you felt more confident in. But it's an interesting move, and we'll have to see how it unfolds. I don't know.
Yeah, I respect the move tremendously. I'm really happy for it, because when I saw the movie, while there is a lot of great comedy in it, and it's basically all in the trailer, not all the comedy, but the trailer is cut as like high comedy. But when you see the movie, there is much more grounded drama to it than there is comedy. It is injected and infused with a lot of great humor, But I mean, and especially the final third, it's a real drama. So I absolutely respect that they made that decision, because especially at the Globes, the choices that studios make of trying to pass dramas with a bit of comedy, I think is cheap.
Yeah. They could have easily got away with that being a comedy easily.
Yes,
and I don't think
the
HFPA would have objected at all.
Nope.
But I do agree. I think ultimately it does lean more to being a drama than a comedy, in my opinion. So I think it's the right placement. I think it's where it should be. But it's also a decision, like I said, they could have easily gotten away with comedy, but they didn't, and they made the decision that I think will make the path tougher for it. But it does show, I think, a great deal of confidence in it that they did make that decision knowing it would be the more difficult path.
Yeah, and just imagine if McDormand beats Streep. How crazy would that be?
I think even Frances would be shocked if that happened.
I think so too, and I'm not even saying that it's not even unrealistic. But Streep is a pretty big hill to climb.
Yeah, maybe the backlash against never giving Frances a Golden Globe, maybe they'll want to counter that. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if the HFPA really cares about other people's opinions. I think generally they haven't.
They don't.
So I don't think that's going to factor in.
I don't think so either. There is no overdue concerns with the Hollywood Foreign Press.
They like who they like. They like who they like, and they continually show who they like by continually giving those people awards, even when they don't deserve them. So.
Yes. So, looking at our top 5, which we mentioned, McDormand, Streep, Hawkins, Robbie, and Ronan right now. Is there this is, and as we have written and talked about, this is a really, really packed year for this category in all the best and most exciting ways. In that there are some very great roles for women that are actual lead roles and not a co-lead. But it's the thing that's going to make this very difficult to predict.
Yeah.
Because right under those 5, there's Judi Dench and Jessica Chastain and Brooklyn Prince and Emma Stone and Kate Winslet, I guess, but not really. And I think there are cases to be made for spoilers within that group, but oh my God, the snubbery that would have to take place for McDormand, Streep, Hawkins, Robbie, and Ronan to miss would be pretty epic. But we just saw Amy Adams lose out on a nomination, so it can happen.
Yeah, the top 5 we have right now looks pretty good to me, and it's interesting because it's entirely possible that all 5 of them could come from Best Picture nominees, which would have to be a first. I mean, I can't think of that ever happening where all 5 Best Actress nominees came from Best Picture nominees. Off the top of my head, I can't remember that ever happening. Obviously, it's more likely to happen now with there being an expanded field. But that would be terrific, and that's also a big reason why it's hard to see anyone aside from the 5 you mentioned cracking this field. I mean, Judi Dench was in one of the few sleeper indie hits of the summer. I guess priming over the fall. I guess it was closer to the fall. I guess the fall, because it played the fall festival, so I would say the fall.
Yeah,
but
and it's still there.
Yeah, and it's quietly done very well, and she's obviously revered. So it wasn't the biggest hit with critics, but people wanted to see it, and it was one of the few indie movies the past few months that people have consistently gone to see. So that can't be dismissed. Jessica Chastain is interesting in the sense that she's been very active the past couple months about the sexual harassment allegations. She's been very proactive about it. One of the few celebrities consistently speaking out about it on Twitter.
Yep.
So she's making her voice heard in a very good and proactive way, as I said. And she is, the HFPA really, really likes her, clearly. She got nominated for Miss Sloane, which, while I think she was great in, literally no one saw that movie. So that was impressive, and that shows how much they respond to her. And I think Molly's Game in general is definitely a film that you could see the HFPA responding to more so than other groups, because they have Aaron Sorkin, who they gave a screenplay award to for Steve Jobs, basically entirely out of nowhere, because Steve Jobs was not even a Best Drama nominee that year, and somehow he won the screenplay award. So that shows how receptive they are to him specifically. You have Idris Elba, who they like a lot. I think he's won a couple Golden Globes, or at least he's been nominated for a ton. I don't know if he's won, but he's been nominated like 5-6 times.
Yeah, they do like him a lot.
So they like him a lot. So I think Idris Elba could be one of those sort of out of nowhere supporting actor Golden Globe nominees for sure. I could see that happening. So I think she's probably definitely set for a Golden Globe nomination. Beyond that, it's tough because Molly's Game isn't going to be a Best Picture nominee. It could be an adapted screenplay nominee, but that's mainly because that field is so thin this year.
Yes.
But
yeah, I'm seeing Molly's Game tonight, so I'm really curious to see how it might pan out.
Yeah, we're not gonna. I know we're not gonna have time to completely venture in that, but I will say I just added Wonder Woman to my top 5 for adapted screenplay.
Oh my god!
Which is partially a sign of how thin that field is, and partially the fact that Warner Brothers is pushing it a lot.
Yes.
Because I think the sense that there's some significance to that movie, topicality to that movie that maybe there wasn't a few months ago.
Yes.
And I think they also sense that adapted screenplay is thin this year, and that could be a category that could be very easy to penetrate with the right push. So, but here in this category, it's just like I look at this top 5 and I look at them all. I'm like, how do you McDormand, Streep, Hawkins, Ronan, Robbie? I mean, I don't see how any of those 5 get knocked out. I mean, all 5 of them could be in Best Picture nominees. I mean, they're all raved, all significant, great reviews. And now with Robbie's film sort of coming out of nowhere at TIFF, the whole dilemma of not having a first-time nominee has been solved.
Yep.
So it's like where I don't see a question here of why you would be predicting anyone other than those 5, at least right now.
Yeah, and something that whenever I do, my write-ups for these is I point to the actual point totals that our predictions carry, because you can have, for instance, McDormand at number 1 and Meryl Streep at number 2, but look at where they are point-wise, because the rankings are really, really important. The separation between the number 5 and number 6 spot is 10 points, which is actually a lot in this, because it shows how solid that we think this 5 are, and how difficult it's going to be for somebody 6 through 10 or 11 to break through with the numbers. It's going to be really difficult. And, we'll look at Screen Actors Guild and we'll look at the Golden Globes, but those are going to be really disparate this year. I mean, they are often, because the Globes separate drama and comedy, but a lot... Robbie and Ronan are going to be ending up in comedy at the Globes, so you're going to get, like, Chastain, as you mentioned. They don't like kids, so I don't expect to see Brooklyn Prince there. Emma Stone is going to be in comedy, so that leaves a likely Winslet drama nomination. Judi Dench is probably going to go in comedy, although I would be loath for that to happen because it's not really much of a comedy.
Yeah.
So I think actually the Golden Globe drama actress nominees are going to be one of the hardest things to predict, because it's kind of wacky.
Yeah.
But yeah, we might be looking at the final 5 right now, and nothing is going to really be able to impact that. I mean, obviously we know that the Screen Actors Guild is extremely dependent on visibility and screeners, because the nomination committee are not, LA based and New York based. They're based on a random selection across the country.
Yeah.
So they are often entirely dependent on screeners. That's where you get, Emily Blunt and early stuff that doesn't make much sense or doesn't go the distance. But I'm a little nervous about, like, Diane Kruger right now. who I was extremely dismissive of, like, always, including her Cannes Film Festival win. I was like, yeah, no, whatever, that's bullshit. She goes all in on her actressing in that movie.
I saw it. It's a lot of actressing. You're right. There's a lot going on there.
It's actually super reminiscent of Emily Blunt to me.
Yeah,
that,
I see the comparison. Yeah,
in that where you can get a screener out. I mean, I have my screener of it, so it could go there. Yeah. She's in the LA Times Actress Roundtable. Magnolia is obviously pushing hard for it to happen.
Yeah, and the other thing is why I think the film is quite flawed. It's very accessible for a foreign language movie. It's not it's not the typical quote unquote slow paced thing that SAG members may not respond to because it's foreign. The movie moves at a quick clip. It has a lot of urgent, I guess, excitement to it. And she goes through the full range of emotions in the movie. So it's one of those things that wouldn't surprise me if she popped up, a place that none of us were expecting. So yeah, I mean, if they get screeners out, SAG, Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, even though we don't really take Critics' Choice seriously because there's some dubious qualities there, but all of those things are possible because, I mean, like you said, it's all about getting the screener, and if they get it out, if people watch the movie, put it in. She does a lot in that movie. I mean, she does a lot. So, no, I mean, I think she's good in the movie. I'm not dismissing the performance as flat out bad, but I mean, she does a lot in the movie in terms of the range of emotions she goes through. So it's entirely plausible. People just need to see it, and they need to see it as soon as possible. And if they see it, then it's possible that it's one of those things that they'll remember. They'll remember, all the trauma and heartache she goes through in that movie. So, yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think it's going to be difficult for her because she's going to be in a foreign language movie, as opposed to the other contenders who are, one, in English language movies, and two, I would say the thing that differentiates her from someone like Isabelle Huppert last year is that In the Fade will not be the critical acclaim thing that In the Fade is. In the Fade's reviews are quite mixed, and they were out of Cannes. And Elle was strongly received out of Cannes and strongly received. It had detractors, but it's not going to have the kind of split reaction that In the Fade has. So
yeah, I think her Cannes win actually is not a benefit for her. It's a negative because I mean, we know that the rules of the Cannes Film Festival awards are you can't have two if you're in these top categories. So Kruger's win was by most estimations a default win.
Yeah. It was more an emblematic problem of the fact there were very few films with strong female characters in them at Cannes.
That too.
And not to say that she didn't deserve it so much that her competition there was rather thin. So unfortunately, so I would say, and I think Jessica Chastain made a point of that during the after Cannes, during the whole discussion they had with the reporters, that she was disappointed about the lack of strong female characters and how the female characters were represented in the films.
Absolutely.
So I think, not to, I guess, undermine her Cannes win, but I do think there were extenuating factors and circumstances there that made it easier for her to win there than it will be to crack this field. So
yes, and you're right on both counts that it is actually a very accessible movie, but a foreign language performance needs a lot of critical support, and it's not going to have that in the same way that Huppert did.
Right.
Although, I mean, Kruger already is a lead actress, Screen Actors Guild nominee, so it might.
Oh yeah, she did get a SAG nomination for Bastards, didn't she?
She did, which totally threw everybody for a loop.
Yeah. Well, I think SAG really responded with it because I think it won Ensemble that year. So, but yeah, I mean that shows that maybe actors really respect and respond to her more than we think. So, I only say that because she's not, a household name, but maybe in the industry she has more clout than maybe some people assume.
Sure. So, and all it's going to take is one of those top 5 contenders to not, have a screener out in time. That's all it's going to take.
Yeah.
So, there we are. What do we want to go to next? Where are we at? Oh my God, we're at an hour and a half. Well, fuck it. Let's talk Best Actor a bit, because unlike actress, this is kind of I don't want to say totally open year, but outside of the top 3, it gets much more open.
Yeah.
And again, I will point people to point totals in this, because we have Gary Oldman, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Timothée Chalamet in the top 3, and their totals are 185 and 84. And then you go down to 4 and 5, which is Tom Hanks and Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's 65 and 60.
Yeah.
Which just means that there is a lot of room to fail here. I think it's very possible for somebody like Gyllenhaal to have a Nightcrawler-esque run and then still miss out. I have him at 5, but I don't feel strongly about it at all.
I mean, I think with Gyllenhaal, he's out there, right? He's campaigning, and he's being very aggressive, and that's, I think, a big reason for that is because he produced the movie.
Yes.
He feels very strongly about it, obviously. He's playing a real-life person, and the two of them seem to have a really strong kinship and relationship. So the two of them are getting out there at screenings and conversations and whatnot. But obviously the film's box office was poor, and that's going to affect him. But his reviews are strong. He's arguably, overdue for a lead actor nomination. I would say definitely so.
Mm-hmm.
So those things. So yeah, there's pros and cons there. He's in a very fluid state right now where things could go either way. I mean, it would be very unfortunate for him if this were to be another year where he were to get precursor support and then miss the nomination. That would just seem very cruel. So,
it really would.
But I mean, he's on the fence. He's on the fence. Like I have him at 6 right now.
Yeah.
And I have, Franco and Hanks, I would say, just barely ahead of him right now in the 4th and 5th slots. It's tough, it's weird because in a way it's a thin field, and then I look at it and say, well, is it a thin field? I mean, yeah, there's not the typical, yes, I mean, James Franco, being a serious contender for playing Tommy Wiseau, would that happen in most years? I don't know. But I really want Jake to happen because I think the snub for Nightcrawler is one of the most egregious in the past decade, I would say, if not longer. Mm-hmm. And he's done such great work, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. The screeners need to get out there. He needs to keep doing Q&As. He's campaigning really hard, which is good, but he's going to need to keep doing it because he's fighting an uphill battle, I think, and I think the odds are beginning to be stacked against him here because I think A24 is doing a remarkable job with the Disaster Artist campaign. I think they're just killing it. The billboard they put up there with, him, Franco looking like Wiseau, and then the phone number, and apparently Franco had the phone and was talking to people that were phoning, and then the lines got so jammed up that they had to disconnect the phone or something like that. But I thought that was terrific campaigning, and they're doing this thing where they're giving out the Tommy Award, where there's this interactive viral marketing campaign. I think it's just fantastic, and I think it just makes me feel more confident in him. And Franco's, he's out there too. He's doing the variety actors on actor thing. He's doing I think he was part of the LA Times Roundtable too.
Yep.
So and like Gyllenhaal, he was a significant creative force behind this movie getting made. Obviously, the director of it.
Yes.
So that's going to push him to want to campaign for the movie, much like Gyllenhaal. So. And I think Franco, I think he has this, and interesting because I talked to the Midnight Madness programmer, and obviously the Disaster Artist played Midnight Madness. I talked to him a bit a couple weeks ago about the movie playing Midnight Madness specifically, and about Franco's relationship with Wiseau, and he was talking about and I sort of agree with him. They have this sort of kinship that's very interesting, and I think maybe in some ways, much like Wiseau, Franco feels maybe misunderstood as an artist, and maybe that, and I think that comes through in the performance, because I think it's a surprisingly empathetic performance and a surprisingly three-dimensional one. So,
well, I don't think you could do a story like that and have it just be pure mockery. You have to find the humanity in it, otherwise it's just mean-spirited.
Exactly, yeah, and I think the novel that was based on had a lot of that, and I think that's why people really responded to the novel. It was very acclaimed at the time, very respected. I haven't read the novel, but I think I'm going to try to read it soon. But I do want to throw, since we're on this topic, I do want to throw one possibility that I'm beginning to be more and more confident in, and that is Daniel Kaluuya. I hope I didn't butcher his last name. For Get Out, because I think Get Out's an easy Best Picture nominee. I think he's fantastic in it. So
he's my number 6.
Yeah, so I'm thinking where, and I'm seeing this weird, pushback to the idea of him being nominated from people like, oh no, he's not getting nominated. But my question is, why not? It's a fantastic showcase. He gets to show a wide range of emotions. He goes through a lot in the movie, obviously. And the movie's a Best Picture nominee. And also, ding ding, he's a person of color in a situation where we're not going to have, arguably, probably any other male persons of color nominated this year. So,
well, and that's exactly the thing. If you look at our 6 through 11, we do have Daniel Kaluuya, Denzel Washington at number 8, Chadwick Boseman at number 11. Chadwick Boseman's not happening.
No,
I have him at 9, but he's not happening.
Yeah, I've removed him from the top 10 entirely.
And I really should as well. And then there's Denzel Washington, which I'm...
See, I saw the movie, and I'm hoping my personal opinion of it being a fairly colossal disappointment isn't impacting myself on it. I know they sort of re-edited it and rearranged it, and seeing if that maybe is going to create a stronger response, because I know they're talking like the Toronto premiere was more so like a more glamorized test screening.
It's like a dry run, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they tried to get in there and maybe fix some of the problems with the movie. So we'll see how significant those edits were, and if it changes the critical response to it significantly. If it does, I'll definitely have to reconsider where he is in the race.
And that's what's really curious, because right now it's got a 64 on Metacritic, but once this new cut comes out, all of those reviews are going to have to be scrapped.
Yeah,
because they're not going to be based on the film that is theatrically released.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it wasn't like merely small edits either. It sounds like they made some fairly significant changes. I think the runtime's been shifted by 9-10 minutes.
I'd read like 10 to 12.
Yeah, so that's not an insignificant amount of time. And I know I think what they said was they were putting a couple scenes in different places and trying to make the film feel more, I guess, organic or truthful, and make those scenes seem work better within the context of the film. So yeah, I don't know. So he's in a state of flux right now. I'm going to wait to see how critics respond to this new sort of cut of the film, and maybe just readjust where he is after that. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat, because I haven't seen it yet, but my God, that trailer is the messiest thing I've seen all year.
And it's sort of emblematic of the film I saw. It was tonally, it was very messy. It didn't really know what it wanted to be, and it fluctuates drastically between being sort of like a sort of almost a comedy in some ways, or like an absurdist comedy, to this sort of grounded, realistic, gritty drama that was sort of emblematic of Nightcrawler's tone. So I'm not really sure what to do with him. I have him at 10 now, but that's sort of like a placeholder. Like, I don't know. So but I mean, if it's tough, because like if the movie gets a better reception, and he's Denzel Washington, so he's probably going to get a Golden Globe nomination if the reception is better, and maybe a SAG nomination, because obviously SAG, liked him enough that they gave him a surprise win over Casey Affleck last year, and he's obviously, because he's Denzel Washington, like, come on. But,
well, and he had never won before, so it was like his Meryl Streep in doubt.
Yeah,
win.
There were a lot of factors going on there that I think contributed to that win. So it's tough. And then another Gold Rush gang member, Jason, proposed an interesting contender, which I have somewhat latched onto the idea, even if I find it simultaneously absurd. And that's James McAvoy for Split.
Yeah.
I don't know if I entirely buy it, but this category is so fractured and weird right now that Universal sent out a very elaborate designed DVD campaign folder for the film, and for his performance specifically highlighting it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, frankly, I don't know if McAvoy's performance in that movie entirely works, but you cannot deny that it is an actor's showcase. He's literally playing 23 different roles, I guess you could argue. And I mean, there's a lot of, so I mean, like in a race that feels very fractured and almost thin, I mean, the movie was a significant box office hit. The critical reception was fine. It wasn't bad. It was certainly Shyamalan's biggest critical hit in probably a decade at least.
Yeah, it was a big hit.
Yeah, so I mean, the reception is there. They're putting the movie out. But now you're in a situation where you're campaigning two lead performances in genre films from the same studio, Universal, in Kaluuya and McAvoy. You're campaigning two genre performances from the same studio. So, I mean, it's hard to... This is why I worry about Kaluuya, because it's like, are they really pushing McAvoy hard that they're not going to take Kaluuya seriously? I don't know.
I'm almost offended by the push for McAvoy so specifically.
Yeah, because it feels like they're not taking Kaluuya seriously by doing that, and they should, because Kaluuya is going to be in a Best Picture nominee, and he's fantastic in the movie. I mean, I think it's a better performance than McAvoy's, frankly.
I agree. It's also a more likely nominee, and it's a really strange thing because I mean, McAvoy has like a huge fan base on Twitter, and they are rabid, as often happens with Twitter fan bases. Oh my god, I can't even tell you how many like DMs I've gotten. Why don't you have McAvoy in your list? What is wrong with you? And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll put him in. Just relax. My goodness.
Just wait if he gets a surprise SAG nomination. You're gonna have a million people saying, "I told you so."
Oh, and I'm gonna be like, sure thing, Emily Blunt, whatever. But yeah, it's weird. There is a very clear effort by Universal that is pushing McAvoy over Kaluuya, and I don't understand it. I don't like it.
and Kaluuya just got a Gotham Award nomination, right? I mean, like, he got a Gotham Award nomination in a very competitive field.
Yes.
So I'm not really sure what the deal is there. I mean, I think Kaluuya is going to be... I think he's going to be a critic favorite. I think he's going to win the Odd Critic Award. I could totally see it. I could totally see him winning LA. I could totally see him winning National Society of Film Critics. Like, I don't think he's going to sweep or anything, but I think I could definitely see him winning the odd one or two. So...
Well, it's interesting, too, because when I'm looking at this top five that we have, they are all coming from... films that are going to be in drama at the Golden Globes, and it's not like Best Actress, which is going to see splintered lists. So breaking into that five, somebody like Washington is the only one that would be able to kind of do that. Franco and Kaluuya are both going to be in comedy, so they won't be affected by that specifically. I think something that could break this though. Is Tom Hanks, and if he is pushed supporting, I don't think it's gonna happen. And my God, I wish we had like the official submissions for SAG that they have to do by October 23rd, so that we know at least where the studio wants to put him. Yeah.
But the fact he's second billed does open up the possibility that he could be. I mean, I don't think he's going to, but it opens up the possibility that could be the case.
Yes, and I think the only reason why anybody's really entertaining the idea is because of All the President's Men. Otherwise,
that's true.
It would not really be a thing, I don't think, at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he'll probably still go lead.
I do too.
But I mean, I guess that's an interesting possibility. And the thing with Kaluuya is he's probably going to lose the Golden Globe to Franco, just because Franco is the bigger name. And I think that, giving James Franco the Golden Globe for that type of performance would be a cool TV moment that the Globes would like to probably capitalize on, especially if Wiseau shows up and whatnot.
Oh my God.
So,
of course he
will. Yeah. So, but I don't know. This is interesting to me. Oldman, Day-Lewis, Chalamet, Hanks, Gyllenhaal, Franco, Kaluuya. I think those 7 are. I would put them on a higher register than everybody else. I think it's probably going to come down to those 7, pending the Denzel Washington situation, which is obviously still in flux and up in the air. But I think it's probably going to be down to those 7 for 5 slots, though. We'll see with Roman Israel, because that's just a huge wild card right now in terms of the re-edit and everything.
It definitely is, and certainly Kaluuya and Washington are the only hopes of breaking this all-white top 5.
Yeah.
And I think the makeup of the new Academy will push that. I honestly do.
I do, yeah.
And that's going to mean that somebody from that list is gone. And even though I have Gyllenhaal in 5th and Hanks in 4th, I think Hanks seems like the more likely candidate.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. I mean, if the film is really more so focused on Streep, then yeah, I mean Hanks has been snubbed in recent years before when it seemed like he was going to be nominated. So
yeah,
don't see why it can't happen again.
Yeah, it's.
Have you seen Darkest Hour now?
Yes, I saw it last week.
Do you think it's a done deal? Do you think Oldman's got it in the bag?
Yes, because I think the Oscars and the Academy is at a sort of precipice right now where a role in a win like this is very traditional.
Yeah.
But we might be seeing like the final years of something like this being so obvious of a winner. But yeah, I would be really hard pressed to see him lose. Really hard pressed. And makeup.
He's just got so many, things working to his advantage. People, even though he's only been nominated once, it feels like 1, he should have been nominated more than once, and 2, other people feel like he's more, revered than his 1 nomination would indicate.
And he's very in it to win it this year. He's everywhere.
And he's pushing the movie hard campaigning, which I don't know if is typical of what he usually does. He seems more of like a quiet, laid back type of guy, at least in terms of campaigning and whatnot.
Yeah.
So the fact he's out there pushing the movie is just another sort of thing working to his advantage. And personally, I'm still holding out hope that Chalamet can find a way to make this a little more interesting, but it's going to be difficult. And
it's going to be enormously difficult.
Yeah, because like he's going up, let's just get to the brass tacks. He's a 21-year-old actor going up against Gary Oldman in like beyond transformative performance in all respects: voice, mannerism, physicality, appearance, in what is, in my opinion, the most transparently Oscar baity movie in contention this year.
Oh yeah, it's
which isn't to say that the movie doesn't have qualities to it and strengths. It's just it does feel like a movie engineered to win Oscars.
It is, and I'm not a huge fan of the movie. It has a lot of great things about it, including Oldman, who I mean, he is absolutely amazing. And the texts in the movie are also really, really superb. But right after I saw it, I took Ben Mendelsohn and Kristen Scott Thomas out of my predictions in supporting.
No, they're not happening.
They have so little to do
It's funny because Jason and I, another Gold Rush Gang member, like I mentioned before, we had been telling people because we saw the movie TIFF, we're like, they don't have anything to do, and like people weren't listening. They're like, no, we're keeping them in. Like, no, they literally have nothing to do. Like this isn't like, this isn't even comparable to like Helena Bonham Carter, which is the comparison I saw people making to Kristen Scott Thomas. She does not have nearly as much to do as Helena Bonham Carter did in that movie. She just doesn't,
Yeah.
And I love Kristen Scott Thomas. I love her. But she just doesn't have enough to do in this movie to happen.
No, she doesn't. And you can't make a comparison with that movie because that was the Best Picture and Director winner, and that's how that comes in. Coattail nominations are not always dependent on the lead. They're dependent on the film as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's I know there's a lot of pundits that have Darkest Hour top 5, and I understand it, because I think they're looking at it similarly to the way I mentioned before, as this sort of, the old Hollywood guard will still be deep in for a movie like this.
Yeah,
so I
and
get
then
it.
with Ben Mendelsohn, he's in arguably the most competitive category this year. And while I think Ben Mendelsohn is an actor who is probably going to get nominated sooner rather than later, just based on his career trajectory, he's an Emmy winner. He's been in a lot of quality projects. So in that sense, it makes sense that this was going to be his ticket to his first nomination. But I don't think he has enough to do. I mean, he's in the movie more than Kristen Scott Thomas, I think. At least it feels like he is.
Yeah, because she basically has 2 scenes.
Yeah. But he doesn't really have any, standout scene that you can point to and say, yeah, that's why he's going to get nominated, or that's a clip scene. Someone like Michael Stuhlbarg in Call Me By Your Name, he's not in the movie a ton, but you can point to one scene where it's like, yeah, that's why he's getting nominated. You can't say that with Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, I was on another podcast earlier, and I mentioned that Stephen Delane has more screen time and more to do than Ben Mendelsohn in that movie. Yeah,
it's true.
And he's the antagonist for all intents and purposes.
Yep.
So it would be very difficult to see Mendelsohn or Scott Thomas in, even though they're both doing a fair share of campaigning. But it would just be... I think Darkest Hour...
The movie would need to be stronger than it is.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it comes down to. It would need to be the best picture frontrunner or top 3 movie, and it's not. So.
Exactly. And that's why I did it. I mean, otherwise, I would still have them in, but yeah, no, I'm just not. I'm not there with it. Well, gosh. I'm looking at some of these lower tier contenders, and just like with Best Actress, I'm like, can any of them possibly benefit from like a massive failure in the top 5? And I don't see it. I mean, Robert Pattinson's not going to get in.
No. He could win the Odd Critic Prize or 2, but it's not an industry movie. Like, I think I have him at 8, and that's more so just because I think he's going to be a critic favorite than anything. I don't think that movie's going to be anything industry-wise.
I liked the movie a lot, but if I'm being honest, he wasn't even my favorite performance in it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, and like I think this will be a movie where Pattinson gains a lot of clout and maybe sets up like a future nomination from critics. I'm thinking something like ironically Kristen Stewart for Clouds of Sils Maria, where she won critics awards, but I knew deep down she wasn't getting an Oscar nomination for that movie. But it's more so that it shows people that he actually can act, and that it'll set up the sort of the groundwork for maybe when he's in a more baity movie or a movie that will be more responded to by the industry, that they can say, hey, remember him in that movie that maybe we didn't really like, but he was actually pretty good in?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it shows so basically that's what it comes down to. It's not going to happen, but it shows people that he's more than a pretty face, I guess is the main thing.
Yes, and like I said, like Actress, somebody from that top 5 has to fail big, and there are people already ahead, of somebody like Pattinson or McAvoy or Andrew Garfield. So poor thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, at least Jason has finally dropped the idea of Andrew Garfield happening. It took a while, but at least he's finally there.
He still has him at 7, so that's not dropping.
That's too high. That's too high.
It's embarrassing.
Like he should be no higher than 9th or 10th at absolute best, and that's only because the category's thin.
Yeah, I have him at 10th because he is, Bleecker is getting him out there, and he is trying his darndest.
Yeah, but the movie has bad reviews and nobody sees it, so I don't see how it's even possible.
Yeah, talk about really distressingly bad box office. My goodness.
Yeah.
Life support.
Yep.
So yeah. I think we'll probably close with this since we're at 2 hours, but I did want to, we're looking at, these 6 through 11 contenders, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention that Hugh Jackman is in quite a lot of pundits' lists, but the conundrum is that most of them have him for The Greatest Showman, but it's clearly Logan that is 20th Century Fox's push for him.
Yeah.
I'm sure, he'll be able to get a Golden Globe because it's a damn musical, but none of us have him. None of us have him. I had him in 9th last month, but the sheer inability to pick a performance of those two as a likely is enough for me to not have him in.
There's just a lot of bad buzz circulating around The Greatest Showman right now. It seems like the movie is shrouded in poor buzz and poor test screening reports, and it doesn't seem like the 20th Century Fox is pushing it for awards. I've heard it's more of a commercial thing, so that tells me that they're expecting not a great response to it critically, and that Logan, although a daunting task to try to get him nominated for playing a character he's played dozens of times before and is, by all intents and purposes, a superhero, I guess the argument would be that this is a more gritty and grounded and realistic version and portrayal of that character than he's done before, which it is. But I just can't see it. I can't see him getting nominated for playing Wolverine. But then again, we're talking about James Franco getting nominated for playing Tommy Wiseau, so who knows? Yeah,
but at least it's more meta and it's more film-based, and this push for Jackman and Logan feels much more, Ryan
Reynolds-y,
like a last resort. Comic book fan, internet push than anything else.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's the fact they're pushing him for Logan over Greatest Showman, or seems like that's what they're leaning towards, just tells me they have no faith in Greatest Showman. That's where they're at, where it's so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're right.
A studio will show its cards quite nakedly, and that's
the Logan push feels like fan fulfillment, fan wish, stuff, and it's like he's great in the movie. Like it's by far the best he's been. It's by far the best performance he's given as that character. But I don't know. It's the same thing with, people have been banning about the whole idea of Patrick Stewart getting nominated for that movie. It's like, it's not happening, Well,
the benefit of it is that obviously Logan is already out and screeners are at where they need to be. And The Greatest Showman is not. So I think there is a certain element of going with the known quantity versus the one that's not. That I understand. That makes sense. But oh my god, yeah.
I think the one nomination Logan could get industry wise is a WGA nomination for adapted screenplay. Partially because the field is thin, partially because there's a lot of ineligibilities there, and partially because they've given out nominations to superhero movies before recently in that category. Mm-hmm. Guardians of the Galaxy got WGA nomination a few years back. So there's precedent there. And that if there are ineligibilities at WGA with an already thin adapted screenplay field, there could be some really, really wacky nominations there.
There's a good chance that every nominee in adapted at WGA is not an Oscar nominee.
It's gonna be it has the potential to be a very strange field. Like we could see a situation where there's like Star Wars, Wonder Woman, Logan all nominated there. I'm not joking. Like that's where we're looking at. That's if an already thin field has multiple ineligibilities for the already top contenders in that field, it could be a very weird situation where there's like, I don't know, it could be strange.
Yeah, I think it will be regardless. See, look at we got a little bit of screenplay conversation in there.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is I think a good place to wrap. We will follow up with director and picture conversations in future podcasts, as well as more exploration into the screenplay categories, which are just really kind of bizarre this year, in terms of, one category that has too many contenders and another that has not enough, and where is The Post going to go, and where is Darkest Hour going to go, and lots of things to mull over with that. But alas, for a future podcast. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining me today. Do you want to advertise any social media people can find you at?
See, I've advertised this the last few times, and it's like I tell people that, like, for Twitter, I just like I'm complaining about sports related stuff. So like I feel like 95% of the people listening to this podcast are not going to care for what I have to say on Twitter. But I mean, if you're interested in me complaining about the recent escapades of my favorite hockey team, I suppose you can follow me at Matt24Jays. Otherwise, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not going to care. So,
well, that's fine. And at the very least, then they can look at the official Gold Rush Gang predictions and the live updated ones and go, okay, this is where Matt is at right now. I totally agree with that, or I don't.
Yes, that would probably be the more sufficient way of going about that.
I think maybe you're right. For me, you can follow me at awards_watch on Twitter, Awards Watch on Facebook and Instagram. And, of course, come right to awardswatch.com. And like I mentioned, we have live updated predictions that happen throughout the month, which is really kind of fun because, we have information and visibility that changes all the time. So those predictions change all the time. So definitely check those out. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you again, Matt. And until next time, goodbye.